My name is Katie Koslich. I am the Illinois Outreach Coordinator. This is the first of our Habitat Lunch Break series. We apologize, as I said a few minutes ago, about the previous one that we had to reschedule. The fun things with technology, sometimes it doesn't work out. We are going to post on Facebook later today. We are rescheduling the first one that we tried to do that did not work. We're going to host it on Friday now, but that will get shared. Today, Dallas is going to be joining us. Dallas is going to be discussing how to prep a crop field. A lot of people at this time of year are starting to go into CRP or do habitat projects, and a crop field is a great, easy way to prep and get some native habitat in there. So before we get started, if you have any questions during any of this, type them in the comments. We're going to answer some questions and answers at the end. If we don't get to your question, because we are going to keep this at 30 minutes max, if we don't get to your question, we are going to go back and we will answer those afterwards. So just keep an eye out for that. If you also want to view this later, it will, a little bit after we end the live video, or repost it to our page. We are also recording this. We are going to upload it to the Illinois Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever YouTube page as well for anybody that wants some follow-up or to revisit this. So without much further ado, I am going to turn it over to Dallas. And Dallas, teach us what we need to know about prepping a crop field.
Yeah, so I hope everyone's having a good lunch. My name is Dallas Glazik, located outside of Paxton, Illinois. I cover East Central Illinois as a Farmville wildlife biologist, and I kind of find it funny. I actually got this exact question yesterday from a farmer going into his pollinator CRP project. And he's currently sitting on soybeans right now, unharvested. And in the perfect scenario, that is pretty well what you're wanting to sit in. If you have a soybean field and post-harvest, you're looking for low residue. And so that's why beans always work nice. And when I say low residue, I mean 50% bare soil to residue ratio is what you're wanting. More bare soil, the more seed soil contact you're going to have, and more germination come spring. And a good way to always kind of show is I always like to take my hand and stick it on the ground. And if half your hand's touching dirt, half your hand is touching residue, you're sitting pretty. I do have some pictures here to show of that. Let me share my screen over here. And then have two different pictures. What you can see here, this is actually a field stand of cereal rye that was being seeded and post-grazing. And that actually did a really good job of removing that residue, and then the seed was going to be broadcast on top of this and really get some good seed to soil contact. However, most people are going to be experiencing something a little more in the realms of this. So this here is actually a wheat field, or not wheat, oat field that was terminated with the weather. So it was put in on it as a temporary cover crop for the purpose of doing a pollinator seeding. And around our particular area, it's corn and soybeans as the prominent crops. And corn residue is a little bit thicker trash. And there's two different ways you can remove that residue, or three different ways. One, you can do it with the use of cattle. So if you are baling stalks or grazing stalks is a good way to remove that. That's why I wanted to show this picture right here, because cows can remove quite a bit. And then you could also do a prescribed fire. This here is an image of a prairie that I burned, but I wanted to show how thick all this thatch and material was, and then the after effects. So it does a really good job of removing all that residue. And this is a close-up. And you can see a lot of the seed heads that were already there, stuff starting to germinate back up. So prescribed fire is a good one. And then what you can do as well is tillage. I recommend a real light tillage and trying to avoid it if possible, because that does flush up early annual weeds, and that can show a little more weed pressure that first year. I want to be worried about too much of your annual weeds, such as foxtail, water hemp, other pigweeds, ragweeds, because the native perennials will get in there and choke them out come year 3. I actually had a field just seeded 2 winters ago, and this year it came up all water hemp the first season, and then went out there with the farmer this year to check on the project, and we were hard pressed to find a water hemp plant out there. Once the natives get going, they really outcompete your early successional weeds. So yeah, that's the two, or the biggest thing that you're wanting to look for is residue. You want that seed to soil contact. And now let's touch base on methods of putting a seed on. My preferred method is running a air seeder or a broadcast thrower during the months of November until mid-March, 1st of April. That seems to work really well because the freeze and thaw actually allow the seeds to get to their proper depth, and then also breaks open hard seed coats. So I kind of categorize some plants in what I call year 1 plants, year 2 plants, and you can see some of those year 2 plants that need that stratification within that first year by doing a winter dormant seeding instead of a spring drill. The drilling is still a good method to use, but do watch your depth placement on that drill. I have been on some projects that really, the farmer drilled it like he was drilling any other crop of his, put it in half inch deep, and there was very little seed that came up. A lot of these seeds are about the size of ground up black pepper, and so they don't like being buried too deep, and more sprinkled on top is best. Then
So Dallas,
I thought I had a picture of a drill, but I don't.
I'm gonna throw a question for you. You said a lot of people are on the no-till drills when they're doing these, because we have a lot of people that they think no-till drills are the way, and we know that's one of the most common requests we get for equipment. But as you said, we found a lot of projects where they set it too deep. So if somebody is out there either using their local NRCS no-till drill or something for a project this year, what depth would you suggest for native seeds if they're doing a project like this that they should set it to?
Yeah, so our chapter's drill, we had a lot of that where people were drilling them too deep, and we actually removed the tubes on the small seed box and the middle box. So that's a Truex drill, both a 8-footer and a 5-footer. And so the only thing still tubed is whenever it's used for a food plot. So the drill itself is acting more like a harrow. So it does have some drag chains behind it, plus the disc openers will cut through some of your thicker residue. So that is nice whenever you go into, I know what a topic's going to be later of a existing grass transition. Because you can open up some of that, get that seed closer to the ground. But I would definitely not go deeper than 1/4 of an inch if you decide to keep the tubes hooked up to your disc openers for a pollinator seeding. And even that, I'd say you're getting too deep anyways. More just a light scratching is the go-to. Oh, you're on mute, Katie. Oh, I thought you were going to ask another question. But
I was going to say, sounds good. Sorry to interrupt you, and that answered my question.
Yeah, the reaching seed to soil contact with your crop plantings is one of the biggest issues. The second biggest thing you need to look out for is the agronomic chemicals. So this is for people that are thinking a year ahead. So say they are still going to have one full crop year before they seed, and so they can plan on their crop to be soybeans or something with lighter residue, or even wheat that has lighter residue. And then from there, you really need to look at your chemical program. I'm starting to see a lot of results of some chemicals with long residual times that do slow down and impact the natives as they are germinating. I haven't seen them where they completely stop it from coming up, but there was one, I believe they used atrazine in their cornfield mix, and it was it had a longer residual and kept the natives from coming up that first year. They were just really short, and they didn't bush out, so you could tell that they were hindered, but they were still germinating. So that is one thing as well to think ahead on if you have that opportunity to be a full year. So.
All right. So if you were, let's say, today, deciding you haven't up to this point done any prep and you just decided, all right, I've got let's say a cornfield and it keeps on flooding and it's no point, I'm going to pull it out and put it in habitat because I'm losing money on that acre every year. What would you, starting now with that cornfield at this point, what would your process be from prepping to the point that you put the seed into the ground?
Yeah, so thankfully, a lot of your flooding spots are low residue anyways, because you don't have the stand. So I'm going to think, yeah, if it were to flush up with some weeds, something like that during the growing season, and wanting to get it seeded before next planting is the scenario that I'm thinking here in my head. And so what I would do is this time of year, a lot of those weed seeds are going to be, or weeds are going to be drying back. So I'd recommend doing a prescribed burn, or if you can't burn or something, then I would do a really short mow on those weed seeds just to remove some of that residue and open up that soil. And then from there, I would go in with either a broadcast or an air seeder right once the ground starts to freeze a little bit. So you're shooting more December time, and either right on top of a snow or right before a snow is really good, because that snow will as well pack that seed into a proper depth. I like going right on top of a snow because not all my equipment has GPS, so I can actually see where I've traveled, and makes it real nice. I have done one on a deep snow, and that does take a lot longer, and you don't see as good results. So just a real light dusting, and then from there, just sit back and wait. The other thing I'll mention is, other than the initial site prep, I'd put the mower back in the shed. Come that next spring, you're going to see some weed pressure, but then mowing it during the growing season can really hinder the establishment of your natives. I like to say, just decapitates all your flowers and it before they reach seed germination. So I would back the mower back in the shed and let her go, and put the money back in your pocket from farming it, and watch the wildflowers start blooming.
All right, so before we start wrapping this up, just a reminder, if anybody has any questions, put those in the comment section. If anybody is around here, we do have, so to wrap with kind of the final question, if we don't get any more on live, if somebody needs some more assistance with the habitat project, what are some resources that they can reach out to on getting these projects put into the ground?
Yeah, so depending on your location, there are multiple biologists like myself spread across the state, and we're more than happy to answer any calls. My contact information is phone is 217-841-2978, and then it's dglazik@pheasantsforever.org for anyone interested in talking to myself there. And then if you happen to be in a county that is not covered by a farm bill biologist, you can also go into your local USDA office, talk to the soil and water, um, and you can ask them some questions as well of how to prep a site for habitat areas. Then I'm also going to recommend DNR. They do have some resources there that they can assist with, and so there's a lot of agencies out there of people that are familiar with these seedings that would be more than happy to help out.
I'm going to go ahead and take control of the screen from you real quick to show a couple people those resources we were talking about. So the first one is he mentioned is himself and the staff. Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever does have some farm bill biologists located throughout the state of Illinois. These biologists work out of the USDA offices. For certain counties, they do provide technical assistance. So if you need to find that information about your nearest Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever biologist, if you go to ihuntil.com, you'll see on the top here all these bars. If you go to Team Illinois, you will find the contact information for our biologists, the counties that they cover. If the county that your property is in is not one of these covered, you can still reach out to your nearest biologist. We do have a few vacancies right now, so if that position is currently vacant, reach out to the closest biologist and they can provide assistance for you. We also, we do have on that website, we also have the habitat. If you go to that page and you scroll down, which I'm loading, we do have some articles there talking about establishment on ag lands, management of pollinators. So we do have a couple clippings and articles there as well. We do have some more coming up in the future of these Habitat Lunch Break series. Our next one is going to be with Dallas again. That is going to be the 15th, and that's going to be talking about improving existing native habitat. So if you already got some, it's a couple years old, or it just didn't come up the way you wanted, we're going to talk about things you can do to kind of improve that and not have to start all over from scratch. We also are going to be rescheduling our October 8th one that we had some issues with. We are moving that to this Friday, so it'll be Friday the 16th. But those are a couple resources that we have for you guys. We really appreciate everybody coming in and joining us during your lunch breaks. And as always, go put some habitat on the ground. And Dallas, do you have any final comments before we wrap up the Habitat Lunch Break series?
Yeah, so if you're looking to jump on with me in a couple days, it'll probably be mainly talking about the do's and don'ts of what I've experienced, even managing my own personal pollinator project. So a lot of that, I've tried some interesting techniques of timed burns, and as well as some diskings and mowings to see what I can get best results. And so we'll be diving into that, as well as some different forms of management tools that are out there.
All right. So thank you everybody so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you in 2 days on our next Habitat Lunch Break series.
Have a good one.
I already stopped us recording.
Oh.